Welcome to Tapping Wisdom. I'm Sue Padernacht, and I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Beverly Kaye to this next episode of Tapping Wisdom. Bev Kaye has been in my life since 1986, when her first book, Up Is Not the Only Way, saved my career when I was responsible for developing a career development program at the bank I was at, and I had no clue as to what to do. And this book gave me the recipe to create the program, and a very successful program. She later published Up Is Not the Only Way Part 2 in 2017, which gives a really good update and applies very much to the moment that we're in today. She's also a famous author and co-author of Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, as well as Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. So as you can tell, I'm a real fan of Bev's. She's been a mentor, a role model, a sage, and I know she won't say this about herself, so I will. She's a Lifetime Achievement winner at the Association of Talent Development, as well as the Association for Learning Providers. So with that, I want to hand it over to Bev to introduce herself, and we'll start the discussion of tapping Bev's wisdom. So Bev, take it away.
Well, thank you very much for the compliments. And, when you mentioned the awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards, it's either, Bev, you're going to go soon, so you deserve it, or you are going to live a long, long time. So I choose the latter, not the former.
Yes.
And I think I'll never retire. I mean, one of my longtime colleague and friend is Frances Hesselbein.
Oh my, yes.
She was the CEO of the Girl Scouts, and she just turned 104 recently.
Wow.
And we did a Zoom call with her, and I had the pleasure of attending her 100th birthday. And she is still a ball of fire. So, ball of fire. That's what I want to
for all of us.
do. Right,
Yes.
right. And thank you for showing the books. All have big memories. Up is not the only way was a systems approach to career development. And only one chapter in it was really on Up is Not the Only Way. But boy, that refrain stuck. And I told my husband that on my gravesite, I wanted to say, now, Beverly, up is the only way. So he promised.
So for the purposes of the few people listening to this who may not know what Up Is Not the Only Way was about, both the prior and the current, can you just describe that a bit for us?
Sure. The prior was really an organizational development approach to careers. In other words, what does the organization have to do to support that manager-employee conversation? And when I believe in that systems approach, if you really want something to last. But as I got into the field, training became popular, and I entered the field in a time of paper, of 3-ring loose leaf binders with training courses. And happily, paper was popular for a good more than half of my career. And as the training got popular, I needed more and more people to help deliver it around the world. And that's how my company, Career Systems International, really grew. And I ran that company for over 40 years. And the recent Up Is Not is really an example of my writing directly to the manager and the employee. So I moved out of never leaving it completely, but out of writing to HR practitioners and writing directly to the manager or directly to the individual. And that was easier, to tell you the truth, easier.
And one of the things I really liked about the current book, not only in 2017 but even more so today, is you're using in the analogy of the kaleidoscope. Can you tell us about the kaleidoscope uh,
Yeah,
analogy? Mhm.
sure. It's interesting. In Up, the recent Up Is Not, I centered only on the 6 career moves. And one of the, and I'll mention that, but one of the career moves that I think most individuals ignore is growing where you are,
Yes.
enrichment.
Hmm.
So, we used to have a telescopic view. What is it you want to do out there? How will you get there? With a kaleidoscope, a slight turn of the lens and the colors come out totally in new ways. And I think there are ways to stay in your current chair, wherever that chair might be, and change slightly. And your career is different. And sometimes that means learning something new and adding it to what you already do. Sometimes it means, shrinking what you do so you can take on what you really love. A whole variety of, but the kaleidoscope was the best image of if I just move it slightly, it can give me a new perspective. And maybe that's what it's all about.
And considering that we're talking at the end of 2020 and going into 2021, boy, the implications for careers couldn't be more important. And we had some I think, really insightful conversations when we were preparing for this, with regard to inclusion in organizations, as well as really opening up the aperture of that kaleidoscope and considering all 6 of the different kinds of career moves or career options at different stages of our lives, so people get unstuck, because it's
Right,
so easy, right? Where some people are stuck at home, some people are stuck going to jobs, some people are stuck, you know, and are not employed. So
right,
I'm wondering if you
right.
could review what the 6 are, and how people can think about how it applies to them today.
Sure. The 6 have been described a variety of ways, but actually, I'm really big on easy ways to remember things like mnemonics and poetry and all of that. So I always have said you need leverage in your career. And I said that in the early 80s. And leverage, if you think about it, with 2 R's, if you use the word lever with 2 R's, it stands for lateral, enrichment, vertical, exploratory, realignment, which is moving down, or relocation, which is moving on. And I think if a manager is stuck and has to have a career conversation, if they write on their hand lever with 2 R's, they could remember exactly how to talk to their employee about their choices. Because truly, up never was the only way. And now it's not the only way, even more so. But all of those other options, including vertical, are definitely ways a person can grow in their career. And maybe it is about that word grow, and that we expand it.
Mhm.
It gives me, every time I talk, it gives me an idea.
Well,
And
there we go,
so,
folks. A new
right.
book is being birthed as we
So,
speak.
so I toss things now into an envelope.
Yeah.
Remember this. And eventually, I touch the envelope. Oh, that was a good idea. It's a good
So,
idea.
and you talked about the importance of people growing. So, was that the impetus for help them grow or watch them go?
Yeah, the
Retention,
impetus for that
engagement.
was, if we really want managers to have better conversations, and managers are already harried and overwhelmed, and not another thing, we have to make those conversations really easy. And I've done that throughout my career. In that particular book, we talk about having hindsight and foresight that gives you insight as to your choices.
So, can you
Um,
can you give us an example of either when you've had that conversation with people or when your clients have had those conversations and it's helped people advance in some way or grow in some way?
yeah, when I talk about hindsight, I talk about my own hindsight. What have I loved doing? What have I hated doing? What turns me on? What shuts me down? All of those questions. It's a combination of, what are my skills? What are my interests? And what are my values? And I think that's the combo, not just skills. And right now, the literature is filled with skills, skills, skills. What are the skills of the future? And I think you could have all the skills and get A's in them and be bored silly using them. So it's not just skills, it's skills plus passion. What am I really interested in? And what do I value? It's more than that. So hindsight is me looking at me. And hindsight is also me looking at how other people see me. So it's that kind of collective wisdom, like, not just, well, I think I'm hot at this. It's, do others agree? And I think we play to a big career audience, much more than just our own boss. And that audience is always watching and noticing and forming opinions and talking about us behind our backs, actually. And, it's like what they say in the hallways of life about us that forms our reputation. So hindsight is all of that. Foresight is, how is the world changing? How is my specialty changing? And you and I talk about our specialties in HR and learning. And boy, it's changed. And boy, while I admire it and bow to it, I don't like a lot of it. I miss the face to face.
Yeah.
I miss that. But I too am into VILTs and changing all my work so that it's all online and all of that.
Mhm.
So foresight is, how is it changing? And how do I step up and be in line with those changes, and maybe even ahead of those changes? And once I think about that, then maybe I'm ready for some career insights.
Mm.
But they're just not pulled out of thin air. They're pulled from hindsight, and they're pulled from foresight. And
So in
then
other words,
I
so
get
insight
ideas.
is so the when I take my skills, my values, and my interests, and I see where the connection is to the foresight and even
Right, to the
ahead,
future. Right,
those connections, those bridges are the insights about
my
which
choices.
my
Right,
choices, my options, whether I stay in place and enrich,
right,
or I want to move up, or I want to go out.
right. And
Ah,
that's where up is not, appears again. It's not just having one insight, one goal. I say you should have six,
yes.
and you should be pursuing them simultaneously. And it's where I know you and I touched on this when we chatted. It's where I say, are you opportunity minded or opportunity blinded?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, alas, really have blinders on
Mhm.
in their organizations and blinders on as to what they can be and where they can go. So,
So,
opportunity mindedness is paying attention to everything you do. Like before, you gave me an idea and I wrote it down because that was, oh, that's an opportunity. Um, and I think we let them fly by us too quickly.
yes, absolutely.
Sad.
And something, and speaking of opportunity minded, when we were preparing for this, you said something that I thought was really, really important for us to talk about today. And that is how when people feel like they have career options and career insights, they feel included in
Right,
organizations. And so
right,
there's
right.
an
There's
inclusive
a
element to
big,
this that's very critical.
a
Uh,
big hook.
so can you speak more to that?
Yeah, yeah. And just lately I'm writing about it more. I think one of the diversity, inclusion, belonging pieces is, do people see a career, do people see career options for themselves, not just a career path? Because careers are the number one reason I join a company. And the lack of me seeing those career options are the number one reason I leave a company. And the book, Love 'em or Lose 'em, is a book about engagement. And the brand new sixth edition,
Oh my goodness.
20
Wow.
years, 800,000 copies out there. The publisher said, I want you to show the link between engagement and inclusion all the way through. So that book is written according to the alphabet, that all our research on why people stay, we fit into a letter of the alphabet. So A is for ask, ask your people, what turns them on and ask them about themselves. And B is for buck, take responsibility. And C is for career. So actually, you could stop at the ABCs, but we go all the way through to Z. And the new book shows how each one of those 26 connect to inclusion. Although I'm not a diversity specialist at all, but I really see uh, the connect. You can't feel engaged unless you also feel included,
Yeah,
and vice versa.
that's right.
So it wasn't hard to make that connection.
Absolutely. And so, with the new book, Love 'Em and Lose 'Em, being about engagement, um, that's also very challenging for leaders right now who have hybrid organizations, meaning some companies are all virtual, some are all essential and people are on site, and some are a combination. And so a lot of the, assumptions, like just walk up to somebody, wandering around and seeing, management by walking around, you can't do that in a lot of places anymore. And it has to be physically distanced, at least during COVID times. Um, but even in the after COVID is no more, and we're all, immune and immunized, that may, sustain, being hybrid or being remote.
It will.
Yeah.
From everything I understand, it will. And one thing I'm going to send you that you could put on your website is I kept hearing just this year that for managers that I don't know how to connect. After I say, hello, how are you? How are you doing? Like, I don't know how to say that differently to different people. So I took the alphabet and I made 26 different ways, really, to say, how are you? Through any of these different channels. And I'm putting it out free, whoever wants it, because I think many managers, for us, this conversation is easy.
Yeah.
Not so for many, many.
Mhm.
Not so for my hubby, who is a rocket scientist,
Right.
who I just fell asleep. See, I'm really enlightening him, but so I'll send you that list and remind
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.
26 ways to stay connected when
Okay.
you're living, apart.
Okay. Okay. That's great. And I'll figure out some way to not just include it on the website, but I'll also include it on my LinkedIn post
Okay,
as well. So they're
sure,
connected.
sure.
So with that, Bev, I'm wondering if we could close with our last a few minutes with maybe 3 or 4 big takeaways from a leader's perspective, right? So people who are leading either teams or multiple teams or an entire organization. So it's whichever levels, from understanding how we engage people, how we help people think differently about careers. What are kind of 3 or 4 like really important takeaways that people can say, I can use this tomorrow?
So there are actually 4,320. No, here's 3. Out of my engagement work came the idea of a stay interview instead of an exit interview. It's like, when do managers say, well, what can I do to keep you? It's when someone comes and says, I'm going.
Mm.
I think the question, what can I do to keep you, is something every manager should be asking. And it is not just out of the blue, what can I do to keep you? It is, prefacing it by, you are really important to my team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to lose you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, what are some things that are really important to you? And what I say to managers is, don't worry if they say something that you cannot deliver. Tell the truth and say, I can't get more salary right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I really want to know what else matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, if you ask the question, what else matters, 3 times, you will get 3 or 4 things that are within your control. So 1, I would say, ask the question, what can I do to keep you? Out of my career work, I'd say, ask them in their careers, what most nourishes them and what least nourishes them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can then think, gee, their job is filled with least nourishing, and use any word, but any word, nourish if it's not cool. You know, you could even say, out of last week, what piece of your work made you smile? It's a
Mhm,
great question.
mhm,
An employee is not used to that kind of question.
mhm,
And they might say, gee, let me think about it. And then let them think about it.
mhm, mhm.
So I think those are two things I would say any manager in any company, anywhere, can ask right now. And I'd say, and pay attention to their answer. And in their answer, I like to say, is usually one blinking word,
Mm,
one word that flashes.
mhm.
Ask a question about the blinking word. So if I say, well, I love an opportunity to problem solve with my colleagues. Problem solve? Like, what do you mean problem solve? What kind of problems? Or colleagues? Which colleagues? And all of a sudden you go deeper instead of wider. And that tells your employee that you've listened. And it's that simple. Blink, 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 and ask a question. And if it's the wrong blinking word, they'll say, oh no, I didn't mean problem solving. I meant creating or whatever.
Mhm, mhm.
So it works every time,
Right.
even in marriage.
So, as I listen to all three of those, it really it sounds like uh, you know, taking time to get to know people, has so much value regardless of whether we're in person or we're virtual, right? I mean, it now more than ever when people are feeling, physically distanced, psychologically distanced, socially distanced, etc. You know, when a manager or a leader shows interest in not just what we do, but who we are, and kind of, we're more than two-dimensional, a person that's filling a box. We're
Absolutely.
three-dimensional people who bring our whole selves to work, but only a part of us is really seen.
Right.
So it sounds like what you're saying is to show an interest in it's still business relevant, it's still work relevant, but finding out more depth about who the person is, what makes them tick,
Right.
what they're about,
Right.
so that the relationship and the work isn't transactional,
Right.
right?
It, right.
It's got some long term, and this way, people aren't just showing up and doing a job. They really see, a future, and they see
Right.
an investment that's more than just kind of putting in the hours.
It's like imagine yourself as an archaeologist on a dig.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what can I learn about this person?
Yes.
And that mindset, there's a quote I love. I think it's Abraham Lincoln said, I do not like this person. I must get to know him better.
Yes. Yes,
Isn't that
that's such a
great?
great quote. I think he was a first term congressman when he
When,
said that. I love
oh,
that.
so you knew that. I love that quote.
I do.
I
Yeah.
used to tell my daughter when she'd come home from school and say, I don't like so and so. And I quote Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, that's right. Well, who didn't come home from school and say that to their parents, right? When they
That's
were
right.
teenagers. That's right.
Right.
Well,
Right.
Bev, this time has gone so fast. So before we sign off, I just want to tap into your wisdom one more time. Is there anything that I haven't asked about that would be important to kind of close with, to share with our audience?
Maybe because, and I'm still figuring this out. Maybe it's what next, Bev?
Hmm.
And and I'm trying to figure out my own what's next. And here I am, a career person. I should be able just to talk to myself and figure it out. But I luckily have a number of groups and friendships that when I'm stuck, um, gathering a couple people or talking to one or two and saying, what do you think? Last night I had a nightmare,
Mm.
uh, but it had such a message and it never ended. And I was on some gigantic college campus and I was trying to get to some classroom and I was asking everybody, how do I get there? And no one knew.
Mm.
So no one could tell me how to get there.
Mm.
And I woke up and I said, oh my God, that was a loaded dream, Beverly.
Yeah.
So, we're at the, end of 2020. I'm happily in Laguna Beach right now,
Mhm.
celebrating the end of the year. And it's the right time to say, what next?
Yes.
And to ask directions.
Mhm. Absolutely.
That was last night. So I'm going to start asking directions.
Start asking directions. So don't try to, as much as we feel like we're alone, we're not alone. And as much as we feel like we're going through things that no one else is going through, and there's something wrong with us because of it, the opposite is really true. A lot of people are going through very similar things.
Right,
We're not alone and we're not crazy, right?
right,
There's a lot of shared experiences, and even where experiences are different, there's a lot more empathy out
right,
there, for each other. So there's grace in reaching out, and there's grace in showing interest. And I think that
right,
brings us back to our initial discussion about careers and engagement,
right,
that we're in a new place, and it's okay to ask to be cared about, and it's okay to care about others.
right, right. And there's nothing wrong in asking for direction.
Yeah.
In fact, when you do, you give the other person a gift. Like,
Yes, that's
oh,
right.
she's asking me for direction.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's right.
so
Mhm.
ask,
Ask. So, and that brings
ask.
me to the very beginning of this, because had I not asked for help in creating a career development program, I would have lost my job back in 1986. And I asked
Oh,
a classmate, how he developed his career development program for his business, and he referred me to that book. And then I met you, several months later, and
oh,
and then I asked again. And so, that's a really important lesson, is
right,
it's okay. If we're all asking each other, we all enrich each other, and we all
right.
grow, whether it's in place or to whichever direction our career
Right.
interests are, as well as our career opportunities can bring us.
And Sue, I'm proud of you. I've watched you grow and develop and go into different aspects of what you might do. I've never seen you stop growing, learning. And I think that's one of the things that's delicious about you.
Ah,
So
thank you.
my
That's
hat is off
very
to
kind
you.
of you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So with that, I so appreciate, Bev, you giving us your time, and sharing your wisdom with us about careers and engagement. And not meaning for this to be a commercial at all about Bev, but please go to her website, bevk.com, and tap into her wisdom with her latest book, which is going to be the latest edition of Love 'Em or Lose 'Em. And
right. And
and
it's going on pre-publication sale in mid-January,
yeah,
and it's
yes.
out there in early March.
Yeah, so you can check it out. You can pre-order it on Amazon. It all of her books are easy reads. They're fast reads, and they're easy to consume. And most importantly, for us that are practitioners in the field, they're easy to put into practice, and they're
Oh,
easy to use and
good.
easy to share with managers and easy to teach. So with that, thank you so much, Bev.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure. A pleasure.
Take care.